Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May be peace upon you all. I would like to first thank the Morocco Institute of Global South for allowing me to participate on this discussion. It's quite a very interesting topics as we commemorate the 70 years of the Bandung Asia Conference. The world is changing very fast. We see a lot of things happening around the world. Still, there are some conflict, there are some prospect, there are some new development, but again, a lot of challenges that we as a human being or as humanity need to collaborate. This is the idea that we just give some overview about what's happening with the world and how that the Bandung spirit can still inspire for us to work together in facing and meeting a lot of challenges ahead. Just a flashback to our memory. This is a historical turning point when we first, or our founding fathers, our leaders in the past, gathered in Bandung. This is a capital of the West Java. A beautiful city. Sometimes they call it Paris van Java. This is like about 2 hours drive from the capital city, Jakarta, where I live in. But now with the high-speed rail, we can go there within 30 minutes. It's quite interesting. Why is a turning point? Because this is the first that the Asia-Africa hold such conference by themselves, attended by 29 countries with a population in total half of the world. And more importantly, they are committed to declaring that it's time for self-determination, collaborate and cooperate against anything happening at that time, still colonialisms. And the backdrop of those events, Korean War is still happening, within just north of the locations, and NATO was just established, and again as well in United States there are some racism as well being fought, the so-called Montgomery bus boycott, where black guy refused to give seat to white guy on a bus. This is something that we could not imagine now, but at that time there are segregations of even on a passenger and on a bus where white and black cannot mix together. This is something happening against that backdrop. That's why this is very important, because all the leaders from across Asia and Africa get together to declare that it's our time to work together. And as our president at the time, which is one of the initiators, said that this new Asia and new Africa was born. And what is actually being issued or outcome of the Bandung? They issue a 10 principle as one of the communique that in 1955 on the April. But then if we can summarize those, there are 5 pillars, 5 pillars informally that is being understood, that being inspiring to all other leaders across the continents, which is number 1 is peaceful coexistence between nations. This is something that, as for now, we can see it's like business as usual, but then again, in the backdrop of colonialism, a lot of war after World War II, this is quite a noble idea. I would like to, I like to quote a Greek philosopher, I believe, that is frequently quoted by our current president, that the strong do whatever they want, the weak suffer what they must. This is the ball of the game at that time, when the strong exercise some more, will and power to the weak. Yeah, that's why the struggle for independence, the liberation of the world against superpowers is something that's being stated for the Bandung Five Pillars, including how that the people of each country can self-determine what is the destiny of the country, what is the destiny of the nation, and the equality across of races and nation. There is nothing the so-called supremacy of the race. Because this is something that is becoming a disease, something that is triggering a lot of things, imperialism, colonialism, a lot of things. And last but not least, how that we are establishing solidarity toward the poor, the colonized, the exploited, the weak, and those being weakened by the world order by the day. So it's actually a movement or an ideology on solidarity and empowerment for all developing nation and aspiring country that aspire for the independence at that time. Whether this is still relevant for today, this is a lot of discussion, a lot of hope, criticism as well. But if we can see that this 5 is actually something that common to everybody, to every nation, that should be something that is a value that we can share in developing our humanity and our world for the peaceful and for the coexistence. Yeah, the context for relevant solidarity to fight for liberation. Virtually, you can see that today, almost all virtually all already liberated against all those. But again, there are some few exceptions. Of course, we can see what's happening right now. Not right now, even for the past several decades, Palestine is still struggling for their full independence to be recognized an independent country with its sovereignty, but it's still problematic until today. And we can see that what it's all about, that President Sukarno at that times during the opening address pointed out a very good point that the high purpose of man right now, or for the years to come as well, will be free from fear, free from degradations and poverty. This is something that I believe is still inspire us to work together to build solidarity against whatever that now facing human or global south or all the earth, that we need to share as one common vessel toward the destiny that should be more beneficial, more prosperous to everybody. So advocacy within the current landscape, I believe, we still need to see whether there are still remains of colonialism that we need to fight or we need to liberate from. Of course, poverty and inequality are still struggling in Asia, in Africa, and a lot of things happening with regard to economic development, as well as still dependency on those development as well. The rise of the digital technology gave some hopes and opportunities for all of us for the first time in history that we can go across the globe. Nothing is hidden. Nowhere we can hide. Every corner on the earth we can see before our eyes, live, real time. This can foster our collaboration as well, including opportunity for economic and social development, because the use of digital technology can liberate many things as well. But on the other hand, politically, there are still global domination happening even nowadays. We could not deny that even the UN is sadly enough that, with those 5 veto power, that is becoming a growing concern for all the nations on the south as well. How can we democratize more in the United Nations as well. But then again, quoting from the previous that we mentioned earlier on, we could not tolerate that the strong should do what they must, or the weak need to suffer what they need to suffer. But then again, we need to have some equality, coexistence that we need to collaborate and share together. And last but not least, climate change, environmental issues are haunting all people around the world. We see that is quite serious because the damage of the resources or the environmental that is being exploited, sometimes unlimited by all those power for money for other without being concerned enough how to sustain all this development as well. Okay, and we can see that there are a lot of things happening with regard to the technology, but then the game changer, we can say that with the rise of internet, everything is within our fingertips. Every information, all this thing happening, whatever happening, we can see, right? Whatever happened in New York, in Gaza, inside the office as well, or our communication even published within the internet that we can see in real time. This is something that unimaginable before. It creates some hope that we can collaborate, share informations, work together across the globes without being limited by space, by times, or by travel. This is something that we can harness to its fully potential for our development. Another one is mobile. With the rise of smartphone and everything related to it, the power of the computing are on our hand and quite neat that we can use, we can do whatever everywhere, not constrained to all those big computer devices, all those data centers, but still we can do it within our smartphone. Good enough that more and more powerful coming in the recent years. Even the computing power of mobile phone is more powerful than those programmable for the computer that can launch Apollo at the time. And then the social media, we can see a lot of things. We can interact socially. We can collaborate. We can share. We can communicate, make friends, and connect to each other within the social media. And even on the other side of the coin, we or some people are, launching movement, inviting demonstration through social media. It is very powerful. It can be dual-edged sword. It can be beneficial to us. But again, it can be against us as well. And then another point is the rise of the cloud computing. We do not need to create our own data centers, our computer that is very expensive. We can use the services of the cloud, the so-called cloud. This is something that happening around the globe. We can make some analogy whereby we can just plug in a light bulb. We do not need to worry about the power plant, the electricity behind this one. So in the future, or currently happening as well, we can harness, we can best utilize all this computing power without having our own computer center or data center. We just use the services that provided by the cloud. Another point is the rise of the artificial intelligence. This is quite, a totally game changer, even not only for a global south for global north, but for every human being that is being contested by the rise of AI, some ethical dilemma, some concern inside or despite of the hope of the power that it helped the development and the prosperous of the humanity in the futures. Then the socio-economic opportunity, as we mentioned earlier on, a lot of things, this is something that we need to fight for, not to fight against, So how to harness digital technology, collaborate, and leverage its transformative potential. One of the notable things is that with technology, we can democratize our access to resources, whether financial or social or economic mobility. If we borrow what Bill Gates say, banking is necessary, but banks are not. Meaning that, there's a lot of different mechanisms where we can do financially borrowing money through what the so-called financial technology that's happening around the globe as well. Financial inclusion is a target that every country is now opting for. For Indonesia, for example, this is 20% that we targeted of financial inclusion. People at the lower end of the economic pyramid need to have access to those, and so that they can do whatever that they would like to do in terms of knowing not need to worry about the financial issues, because we can provide some mechanism for those unbankable. If you go to bank, there may be a lot of things, but then there's some mechanism. This is something that's quite interesting. And we see that Africa, we can pull out some information that there's a lot of startup flourishing in the so-called unicorn, those a newborn company that worth 1 billion or more. There's a 9 unicorn happening in Africa and in other parts of the world as well. In the global south, Indonesia have currently 2 decacorn, which is more than 10 billion worth of a new company based on the digital. One notable is the one that dealing with transportation and delivery services that we cannot imagine before. You can order food, you can transport to point A to point B without worrying about having your own vehicle or your own services that you can ask for whatever that you want to deliver, either document, food, beverage, and other things. This is quite promising as well. And it changed the way that we do business, it changed in our daily life as well. And interesting enough that when it went for public offering, initial public or co-public, this is becoming the 3rd largest in Asia. Another thing is also becoming a global powerhouse is transportation and logistics, which is moving 80 million parcels a day. You can imagine they reduce logistic cost by 60%. So this is that opportunity that we are fighting for. We can collaborate, maximize its potential, and also embracing new business opportunity. The barrier to entry is reducing, because we do not need, again, huge spaces. You do not need a lot of physical, but you can compete beyond your limited physical boundary. Once you push or you post all this e-commerce digitally, your market is the world, not only your local. And something that is quite significant is how that we push this digital technology and opportunity into public services. This will improve public services quality to the people. This is quite important, something that is business as usual happening in corporation, but once we brought into public service will be significantly improve public policy, public services, so that people can live, comfortably in doing all the everyday activity. And last but not least, digital can be our strategic weapon to fight against corruptive practices that is happening in many countries, including what the so-called bureaucracy pathology. I just have conversation with sociologists and she complained about bureaucracy pathology, a disease within the bureaucracy, a lot of nepotism and other things as well that lead to corruptive practices. So if we can use this digital technology, it will be a lot of things in changing for the better. Yeah. Otherwise, it could be fireback as well. We see that if there is an abuse of power, domestic or political affair, the technology, the social media, it can be used against all those authoritarian as well. It's happening, in Nepal. But, another things that we are becoming concerned while we fight against the remain of colonialism, the discrimination and other thing, but this digital are becoming concerned right now because the technology, all the data is, controlled by those developed nations in terms of technology. Yeah, powerful entities exploit data in infrastructure in global south. This is like a deja vu on the past for the historical imperialism. The reliance and dependence on advanced digital technology mostly controlled by global north. So what we need to do then, we need to be aware that there is quite dependency. A big tech about data sovereignty, data is flowing across the globe from our important, even privacy data when we do internet every day, we Googling every day, they capture all this data. So the work that collaborate or the collaboration should be directed toward how that we can induce local innovation and build robust digital infrastructure, as well that we need to have some transparency if using the technology, and we need to collaborate even with those global north. We do not need to what they call it, contrast it in between global south and global north when it comes to sharing the future of the earth or our human being as well, how that we harness technology for the benefit for all. And we also need to provide capacity building and skill transfer so that we can reduce our dependency. And this is something that is recently happening about privacy, sovereignty in terms of digital right, In today's digital hyperconnectivity, everything is not quite private, Privacy is under attack. Yeah? Everything that we do, everything that we put in, it can be known by all those powerful technology that is controlling, quote unquote, the internet, all those big tech, So it's just you need to some kind of decentralizing so that the power can be divided into several things so that dependency can be reduced and we can do something on our own as well. But the solidarity is not only, as we mentioned, global south, but we believe that all this younger generation in those advanced countries as well, the global north is quite concerned as well for the social justice, so that we can build transitional solidarity among the tech worker for the benefit of everybody. And we are talking the global power dynamic, as you mentioned, that UN veto power enjoyed by 5 countries, which is the remain of the post-World War II, but the balance are quite shifting in terms of economic development as well. Asia is becoming a new powerhouse as well, and then followed by Africa, a lot of potential. This is something that is we need to consider as well. The world is not only now being controlled by one or two nations. There's a lot of things happening. It's becoming the multipolar world order. We can see the rise of BRICS, the G20, despite all those NATO and G7, and also Organization of Islamic Conference as well. This is on the rise. We can see that China is becoming the economic powerhouse. People are thinking that the economy system later on or in the future will be dominated by more power as well. The United States are challenged by China right now is becoming a giant economic powerhouse. And people as well thinking that with the development of the so-called Islamic financial or Sharia economy, it's becoming bigger and bigger. There's becoming, an alternative in terms of economic and financial development as well. So this is something that we can see happening before our eyes. And the most notable things that we mentioned in the rise of Gen Z or the younger generation, with the case of Zohran Mamdani in New York, that is recently elected as the mayor. Previously, it seemed like against all odds, but then he could win. And one of the things that we see is that the rise of the younger generation that is quite concerned about social justice and environmental ethics, and they learn what's happening around the globe, nowhere to hide. They see before their eyes real times that injustice is happening, and they need and they demand and they long for a new leader that can take toward that fight against social injustice. And last point is that the AI battlefield. This is something that is quite hard to to follow on how that we deal in the futures, because huge investment are being poured in terms of the artificial intelligence. In a latest report from the McKinsey about the technology trend, in a matrix in between innovation and the interest of the technology and the how big the investment, AI is much ahead of other things. In terms of the funding, is still a little bit less compared to the future of energy and sustainability technology. But again, in terms of the innovative breakthrough, in terms of the interest of many factors, AI is way ahead. And US and China are not competing fiercely in the battle of the artificial intelligence. It's like a Cold War in the old days. It's like a new kind of arms race. US has already declared that it's not only economic policy, but it's an instrument for global economy of United States. And Trump recently said that he could attract 77 trillion US dollars from private sector and the country to invest in AI. China as well strengthening the global position as economic powerhouse, and they expand with global power projection with the AI, and Europe as well. If we look at this figure, it's quite, one is hopes and opportunity. On the other side of the coin, are we going to rely very much dependent again all those technology? How can we catch up with all those billion investment? This is something that we need to consider as well. And last things is, climate change, the carbon CO2 emission is being concerned by many parties, On the global south, on the global north, I'm sorry, in the global north, the priority will be reduce emission because, there are a lot of industry emitting carbon, and then they keep on industrializing with very advanced and a lot of fossil fuel, but then they are trying to innovate with all this technology, how to make this reduce with renewable energy as an alternative as well. And also they offshore or outsource some of the high emission industry to the global south. On the other sides, global south, because we are still on the very stages of developing our economy and our people for the prosperous, a lot of industry being built that we need to adapt those balancing between economic growth and environment protection. But people also thinking about, hey, all those other nations, you produce a lot of carbon, but then we have to grow our trees, our environment to absorb those. Is it justice? This is something that we need to, talk together to share. It's not only one point A to point B, but it will be collaborating each other because it will threatening the very planet of our Earth for the future. In conclusion, the legacy of Bandung spirit is still relevant for today because we know we still have some fight against the residual dynamics of unique unequal power and dependency. And in terms of those technology, we need to develop capacity building to liberate from neo or digital colonialism and dependency. And importantly, we should harness those opportunities, fight for, not focus on fight against again, but fight for prosperity through policy, education, cooperation, but then being strengthened by digital empowerment. And AI and green energy, as we see, will redefine the balance of power. But then again, in a multipolar world, we are not concerned about South and South itself, but also North and South dialogue. To build awareness and mutual respect to share value and other things. This is my last slide deck. Thanks for your attention. Thank you.